The evening sky was tinged with a soft haze as I stepped out of my house. My heart felt heavy, weighed down by the quiet strain of my relationship, a routine, lifeless connection that had been stretching for months. My partner was home, yet his mind and attention seemed to drift elsewhere. Living under the same roof, we were like two people inhabiting separate worlds. He didn't even ask where I was going. Perhaps he had stopped noticing, or maybe I only realized it now when I felt the emptiness behind closed doors. As I rounded the corner of my street, my neighbor noticed me. He smiled warmly, a calm, reassuring smile that always seemed effortless, as if he didn't even realize the comfort it could bring. "Going for an evening walk?" he asked casually, but somehow his simple words resonated deeply within me. I nodded, "Yes, just need some fresh air. Want me to come along?" he offered. I had no real reason to refuse. Perhaps I wanted company, or maybe a voice that didn't belong to my own silence. "Sure," I said softly, and we started walking side by side. The evening air was cool but carried a gentle warmth that felt soothing, almost like it had been designed to ease our minds. The river wasn't far, yet this short walk felt unexpectedly long and calming. He walked next to me without rush or expectation, just present, just there. And perhaps that was exactly what I needed. When we reached the riverbank, the sound of flowing water was so soothing that we fell silent. But it was not an awkward silence, it was the quiet shared between two people experiencing the same unspoken understanding. He glanced at me gently, as if checking if I was okay. I responded with a subtle, tired but genuine nod, my way of saying, "Yes, I'm here." "You seem a bit down these days," he said softly. Those words stirred something inside me. Down. I had thought no one noticed. At home, no one had even bothered to see my weariness. "Just work stress," I forced a small smile, trying to brush it off. He stopped walking and looked straight at me. "Work stress maybe, but the tiredness in your eyes, that comes from somewhere else." Something inside me shifted or awakened, I couldn't tell which. All I knew was that my heart skipped a beat at the sincerity of his observation. No one had looked at me like that in years. I turned my gaze toward the river, but his eyes stayed on me. He stepped closer, careful, respectful, yet present. There was no rush, no inappropriate eagerness, only a genuine concern, the kind of attentiveness I hadn't felt in a long time. The air had grown colder, yet standing near him, I barely noticed. We watched the water flow, exchanging occasional soft smiles, both aware that something subtle but undeniable was shifting between us. "Shall we head back?" he asked, his voice carrying that gentle hesitation, as if saying, "If you want to stay a little longer, I wouldn't mind." I couldn't respond immediately. I simply nodded and walked with him. The river's murmur faded behind us, but its effect lingered deep within me, warm, strange, and completely new. Returning home, the house felt the same, quiet, empty, unfinished. But this time, something had changed. Someone had seen the unspoken ache in me. Today, someone had truly noticed. I had walked back with him, yet my heart remained by the river, caught between comfort and anticipation. A strange calmness settled within me, and alongside it, an unmistakable flutter of desire. This was just the beginning, though I didn't yet realize how profoundly it would change everything. Morning came, but the quiet of my room felt heavier than ever. My partner had already left, as usual, slipping out without a word, without even asking how I was. Yet today, the silence didn't feel as sharp, it was as if a small warmth from yesterday's walk lingered inside me, softening the emptiness. My thoughts kept drifting back to the river, to the way he had listened, to the way he had looked at me as if he truly saw me. Throughout the day, I found myself noticing little things that I hadn't before, the way he sometimes smiled when we crossed paths, the way he seemed genuinely present, the way he remembered small details about me. Every brief encounter, every casual conversation, made my heart skip in ways I hadn't felt in years. I realized with a start that I was looking forward to seeing him again. The thought both thrilled and terrified me. Guilt gnawed at me, but alongside it was a growing, undeniable attraction. Later in the evening, we met by chance in the hallway of our building. "You seem lost in thought," he said gently, leaning casually against the wall. I forced a small laugh, pretending it was nothing, but my eyes betrayed me. He noticed, of course. He always did. He handed me a cup of tea he'd just brewed. "Here, maybe this will help," he said. The warmth of the cup in my hands mirrored the warmth building inside me. For a moment, it felt like I had a choice: step back into the safety of routine or step closer to something dangerously comforting. As days passed, I began seeking excuses to encounter him. I would linger near the garden, adjust my schedule slightly, always hoping for a moment of connection. And when we met by the river again, the air felt different, charged with unspoken understanding. He noticed the small things, the tension in my shoulders, the fleeting sadness in my eyes. "You don't have to carry it all alone," he said softly. Just being near him, just hearing those words, eased some of the burden I had been carrying for so long. One evening, the sky painted in muted oranges and purples, we walked together along the riverbank. The conversation started light, but gradually, I found myself sharing things I hadn't told anyone in months. He listened without interruption, without judgment, with an attention that made my heart ache in ways I couldn't explain. Every so often, our hands brushed against each other, accidentally, yet I felt sparks shoot through me. The air seemed to thicken, charged with something neither of us dared to name. I could feel the pull of his presence, the gentle tug of familiarity and care that contrasted sharply with the emotional distance of my partner. Guilt whispered in the back of my mind, reminding me of boundaries, of promises, of loyalty, but my heart, rebellious and unrelenting, wanted more. I found myself longing for his voice, his touch, his attention. Even a fleeting smile from him sent waves of warmth through me. That evening, as the water reflected the fading light of the sun, he paused and looked at me, his eyes soft and searching. "You deserve to be seen," he said quietly. His words hit me harder than I expected. Seen. After so long of feeling invisible, just hearing that acknowledgement made my chest tighten. I wanted to deny it, to step back into the safety of the familiar, but the pull toward him was irresistible. We walked back slowly, side by side, the river behind us silent and observing. My mind was a whirlwind of emotions: desire, guilt, excitement, confusion. I knew I was crossing a line, not in action yet, but in thought, in heart. And as I entered my apartment, the walls felt narrower, the air heavier. The world hadn't changed, but I had. Something inside me had shifted, and there was no turning back to the way things were before. By the time I closed the door, my heart was still racing. I sank onto the couch, staring at the faint glow of the evening sky through the window. His presence lingered like a warm shadow, filling spaces that had long been empty. And in that quiet, with the river's memory etched in my mind, I realized, I was no longer just lonely. I was awake to a feeling I hadn't allowed myself to experience in years, an urgent, tender, undeniable attraction. Tomorrow, I knew, would bring another encounter. And I knew, deep down, that each meeting was pulling me further into a world I had no right to enter, but one I could no longer resist. The days that followed felt like a delicate balancing act between my old life and this new, thrilling pull I couldn't ignore. At home, my partner's indifference had become almost unbearable. His distracted glances, the half-hearted conversations, the way he barely noticed my presence, all of it made the distance between us feel wider with every passing moment. I found myself withdrawing, retreating into corners of my mind where only thoughts of my neighbor existed. He, on the other hand, seemed to notice everything. Even a slight slump in my posture or a fleeting shadow of sadness on my face did not escape him. One evening, as rain began to fall softly outside, I found myself standing by the window, watching the drops race each other to the sill. He appeared at the door, umbrella in hand, as if he had somehow sensed my restlessness. "You look like you need a walk," he said simply. There was no questioning, no insistence, just an offer, gentle and unassuming. We walked in silence at first, the rain pattering softly on the path, the world around us blurred by mist. Yet within that silence, a profound comfort settled over me. He didn't try to fill it with meaningless chatter. He simply walked beside me, present and attentive. And slowly, words began to come. I spoke of my loneliness, my frustration, the quiet ache I had carried for so long. He listened, and in his listening, I felt seen in a way I hadn't in years. There was a moment, under the shelter of a large oak, when I broke down. My shoulders shook as tears fell freely, unrestrained. And without hesitation, he reached out, not in a way that startled me, but in a way that anchored me. His hand on my shoulder was steady, reassuring, grounding. I wanted to lean on him, to let him carry some of the weight I had been dragging alone for far too long. And for the first time in a long time, I allowed myself to be vulnerable. He looked at me, eyes soft, unjudging. "It's okay to feel this," he whispered. I wanted to tell him everything, how deeply I had been longing for someone to notice me, to understand me, to hold my heart with care. The line between emotional safety and forbidden desire blurred with every passing second. I knew that what I was feeling bordered on betrayal, yet the comfort and connection I experienced with him felt undeniably real. Returning home was always the hardest part. The warm, secure world of his presence faded into the cold emptiness of my apartment. I walked through the door and was met again with the familiar silence, the same indifference. My heart felt heavy, torn between two worlds, the life I had built and the life I now craved. The contrast was unbearable, yet intoxicating. Every message, every fleeting encounter, every small touch became a lifeline. Even his texts, simple and unassuming, carried weight beyond measure. "If you ever need someone, I'm here." Those words lingered in my mind long after my phone had gone silent. I found myself replaying our walks by the river, the quiet conversations, the fleeting touches, the way he had looked at me as if I were the only person in the world. The realization struck me with a mixture of fear and relief. I was no longer just emotionally adrift, I had anchored myself to him. My feelings for my neighbor had grown beyond simple attraction, they had become an undeniable part of who I was in that moment. And with that acknowledgement came both guilt and longing, a recognition that I was standing on the precipice of a choice that could change everything. I knew I had to confront the truth within myself, even if the world around me remained unchanged. The emotional pull was too strong to ignore, the need for connection too urgent to dismiss. I wasn't ready to act impulsively, yet I couldn't turn away either. The river had shown me what it felt like to be truly seen, and now I couldn't go back to the shadows of neglect and distance. That night, I lay awake, the memory of his hand on my shoulder burning in my mind. Every detail of his presence haunted me, his voice, his touch, the way he had made me feel alive again. I realized that my life was no longer just mine to control, it was intertwined with someone who had opened a door to my heart I hadn't known was closed. And in the quiet, I understood the truth I had been avoiding. I was falling, irrevocably, emotionally, and perhaps irrevocably in love. Tomorrow promised another encounter, another chance to feel the warmth I had tasted. And deep inside, I knew that each step closer to him was also a step further from the life I had known, a life that now seemed distant and hollow. Yet even with the fear, the guilt, the uncertainty, I couldn't resist. The pull of his presence, of being understood and cherished, was too strong. And in that realization, I surrendered, knowing that my heart had chosen, even if my mind had yet to decide what to do next. The next evening arrived with a calmness that felt almost unreal, as if the world had paused to allow me to face what I had been avoiding. I found myself walking toward the river once more, my heart heavy yet restless, anticipating the moment I would see him again. Each step carried a mix of excitement, fear, and a strange sense of inevitability. The river, ever constant and patient, reflected the fading light, its surface shimmering like liquid gold. He was already there, leaning against the railing, watching the water. When he saw me, his face softened into a smile, gentle and unassuming, yet it carried the warmth that had pulled me to him from the start. "You came," he said simply, and I felt a flutter of relief mixed with longing. I nodded, words failing me. For once, the silence between us wasn't awkward, it was filled with meaning, understanding, and anticipation. We walked slowly along the riverbank, side by side. The air was cool, carrying the scent of wet earth and distant blossoms, but my focus was solely on him. Every gesture, every glance, every small movement seemed amplified in the quiet of the evening. And then, finally, he stopped and turned toward me, his eyes searching mine with an intensity that made my chest tighten. "I need to be honest," he said softly. "I've tried to ignore this, tried to stay distant because I knew where your heart belongs. But I can't. I care about you, more than I should." His words hung in the air, fragile yet powerful, and I felt my own defenses crumbling. I took a shaky breath, my emotions a storm of guilt, relief, and longing. I feel the same," I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. "I know it's wrong, but I can't deny it anymore. Being with you, even just here, makes me feel alive in a way I haven't felt in years." For a moment, we simply stood there, letting the truth settle between us. And then, gently, naturally, we reached for each other. Hands met, fingers intertwined, a simple yet intimate gesture that spoke volumes. He didn't rush me, and I didn't pull away. We allowed the closeness to linger, feeling the warmth of connection, the depth of understanding that had been growing silently for weeks. The river flowed beside us, a silent witness to the beginning of something new, something delicate yet undeniable. I felt the weight of my current life pressing against me, the unresolved tension with my partner, the choices yet to be made, but in that moment, none of it seemed as pressing as the truth of what was happening right now. We shared a quiet moment, leaning slightly toward each other, foreheads almost touching, breaths mingling. Words were unnecessary, the emotions we carried were clear. There was longing, there was care, there was unspoken love. And in that silence, I realized how far I had come, from loneliness and neglect to connection, warmth, and vulnerability. Eventually, we pulled back slightly, still holding hands, the world around us slowly reclaiming its sounds. I knew that choices awaited, decisions that would shape the next chapter of my life. But for now, in the golden light of the river, I allowed myself to simply be, with him, with my heart exposed, with the knowledge that I had found someone who truly saw me. We walked back slowly, side by side, not speaking but fully present. The river faded behind us, but the feeling it had stirred, the spark of love, the courage to acknowledge my heart, remained. I knew the road ahead would not be simple. There would be challenges, there would be guilt, and there would be decisions that demanded honesty and courage. Yet, despite the uncertainty, I felt a sense of hope, fragile but powerful. I had discovered that it was possible to be seen, to be understood, and to be cared for in ways I had thought were lost to me forever. And as we reached the edge of the path, I looked at him and realized that whatever happened next, my heart had already chosen, quietly, irrevocably, and completely. In the hush of the evening, with the river behind us and the future uncertain before us, I let myself feel it fully, the thrill of love found in an unexpected place, the ache of longing finally acknowledged, and the tentative, fragile joy of a connection that promised to change everything. And in that realization, I stepped forward, hand in hand with him, ready to face whatever came next, together.